The National Tag Team Championship was the primary tag title in the Georgia territory of the National Wrestling Alliance in the early to mid-1980s. The tag title has a brief history, but in a few short years, some of the biggest and most memorable names in pro wrestling held a share of the championship. Like other lineage videos of this kind on this channel, this is not a deep dive into each and every title reign. I call it a glorified list of champions, but we will slow down and take a look at some interesting points along the way. This video will concentrate on the original run of the title. The National Tag Team Championship has been revived a couple of times in more recent years, but we'll touch more on that toward the end of the video. It's a short but interesting history, so let's get into it. The original name of the title was the NWA National Tag Team Championship, the name it would carry through its existence. As we touched on in the lineage video for the Georgia Tag Team Championship, the national tag title had a somewhat peculiar early history. The lineage begins on November 27, 1980, when Terry Gordy and Buddy Roberts of the Fabulous Freebirds defeated Stan Frazier and Robert Fuller in a tournament final in Atlanta, Georgia. This was the early stages of the Freebirds as a three-man team, and also the beginning of the Freebird rule, which allowed any combination of Gordy Roberts or Michael Hayes of the Freebirds to defend the belts. The Freebirds were already the Georgia Tag Team Champions, which they had won in October of 1980. Seemingly, the original plan was for the national tag title to replace the Georgia Tag title, but as often happened in Georgia in the early 80s, the powers that be apparently changed their mind. Rather than merging the two tag titles or deactivating the Georgia title, they were both kept active, and the Freebirds held both sets of belts into 1981. The Freebirds lost both sets of belts as Roberts and Hayes dropped the national and Georgia tag titles to the unusual combination of Ted DiBiase and Stan Frazier on January 26, 1981 in Augusta, Georgia. DiBiase and Frazier defended both titles against Michael Hayes and Buddy Roberts in a televised defense on January 31, 1981, which ended in a no contest and left both titles held up, ending their reign at 5 days. In a rematch on February 2nd, Terry Gordy and Buddy Roberts brought the National Tag Team Championship back to the Freebirds, defeating DiBiase and Frazier in Augusta to make the Birds the first team to hold the title more than once. 2 days later, they also regained the Georgia Tag title, beating Frazier and Robert Fuller, who was subbing for an injured DiBiase. The Freebirds dropped the Georgia Tag titles to DiBiase and Steve Olszanowski in June, but continued to hold the National Tag Team Championship until Roberts and Hayes lost the match against DiBiase and Tommy Rich in Columbus, ending their reign at 129 days. The national tag titles were not on the line, but it was a loser leaves town match, forcing all three of the Freebirds temporarily out of the territory. That left the National Tag Team Championship vacant. The title would remain vacant through most of the year, with most sources incorrectly listing changes for the Georgia Tag titles as part of the national tag title lineage. Apparently, the powers that be still couldn't decide if they would have one tag title in the territory or two, but it would kind of resolve itself. Eventually, the Georgia Tag Championship was vacated and quietly deactivated. On November 25, 1981 in Atlanta, a 12-team tournament was held to finally fill the vacant National Tag Team Championship, with Bob and Brad Armstrong defeating Mr. Fuji and Mr. Sayato in the tournament final. The Armstrongs were the only father and son duo to hold the title. Bob and Brad had a nice 57-day run with the belts, dropping them to the Masked Superstar and the Super Destroyer on January 22, 1982 in Columbus, Georgia. Superstar and Destroyer held the belts 43 days, when Superstar was allowed to surrender his half of the title to Big John Studd, with Studd taking over half the championship on March 6th. I'm not sure what fans were told, but Superstar spent the entire month of March on tour in Japan, so that was likely the real reason he gave up his half of the title. Destroyer and Studd held the belts another 118 days, losing them to Michael Hayes and Terry Gordy, the Fabulous Freebirds, on July 2, 1982 in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Hayes and Gordy had not only come back to the territory, but had split up and feuded over the Georgia Tag title before eventually reconciling and continuing as babyfaces. all without Buddy Roberts, who was in semi-retirement. The third and final time the Freebirds held a National Tag Team Championship lasted 58 days, with Hayes and Gordy dropping the belts to Afa and Sika, the Wild Samoans, on August 28th in Atlanta. Afa and Sika would keep the belts 125 days before being stripped of the title. Fans were told Afa and Sika refused to defend the belts against Tommy Rich and Paul Orndorff, prompting the NWA to vacate the championship on January 1st, 1983. In actuality, the Wild Samoans had just left the territory and gone to the World Wrestling Federation. The National Tag Team Championship spent another long stretch being vacant, 161 days, before a Phantom tournament ushered in what would become a legendary tag team. Now, for those that don't know, a Phantom tournament or Phantom match was a tournament or match that didn't really happen. In days before the internet, fans only knew what they were told by the promotion. If they needed to get a championship off one wrestler and onto another, or simply fill a vacancy without the trouble of putting on an actual tournament, they made use of a Phantom match or Phantom tournament. They just told fans someone won a title, usually in a location far from the promotion's base. In the case of the National Tag Team Championship, the Road Warriors, Animal and Hawk, were declared the new champions, with their reign officially beginning on June 11, 1983. No location or even any details of the tournament, such as who they beat in the finals, were ever given. I think fans may have been too distracted by the new tag team to care. Part of Paul Ellering's Legion of Doom stable, the Road Warriors hit Georgia wrestling at a time not far removed from athleticism and traditional wrestling being emphasized in the territory. Turning Animal and Hawk loose on WTBS was like turning a bull loose in a china shop. There was nothing technical about the Road Warriors' approach. It was just sheer power and brutality. Jobbers on television were simply manhandled and tossed aside, rarely getting any offense in the match. Fans were seeing more than just a dominant tag team. The Road Warriors were a little scary, and pushed as such by the promotion on television. A string of notable names came forward trying to stop the Road Warriors, and they all failed. Ole Anderson and Stan Hansen, Mr. Wrestling 1 and 2, and Jack and Jerry Briscoe were among the top stars that couldn't put an end to the Road Warriors' reign of terror through their first couple of months. It took a stablemate turning babyface to get the belts off of them after 169 days, the longest national tag title reign at that point. On November 27, 1983, Buzz and Brett Wayne Sawyer finally defeated the Road Warriors for the belts in Cincinnati, Ohio. Buzz had been in the Legion of Doom, but turned babyface when he turned on Ellering for interfering in Brett's match against Jake Roberts, who was also in Ellering's stable. This was also a situation where they held the same match more than once, something they did a lot in Georgia at the time. The Sawyers won the match in Cincinnati on November 27th, but then beat the Road Warriors for the tag title 2 other times, once in Cleveland, Ohio on December 3rd, and again in Canton, Ohio on December 4th. All 3 times, fans in each location left thinking they had seen the title change hands, which technically they did. Usually this is followed with an announcement on television that doesn't specify a time or place, but Canton was actually named on TV as the location, though they didn't give a date. Despite that, I'm recognizing the title change in Cincinnati here, since it was the first match. Buzz and Brett Sawyer held the title in 1984, but their run came to an end after 62 days. Buzz Sawyer was fired from Georgia Championship Wrestling after a backstage altercation with Booker Ole Anderson, prompting promoter Jim Barnett to dismiss the man, living up to his nickname Mad Dog. This was on top of several other behind-the-scenes incidents and unruly behavior from Sawyer. This led to what I suppose would be considered a Phantom match, where the Road Warriors were given the tag title back. No details were given to fans other than the Road Warriors were National Tag Team Champions again, with their second run beginning on January 28, 1984. Animal and Hawk held the belts 99 days in the second reign, again losing them to a heel that turned babyface. King Kong Bundy had made it his goal to get the national tag titles off the Road Warriors, finally doing so with the Masked Superstar on May 6th in Atlanta. Unfortunately, the celebration would be short. Bundy and Superstar officially had a reign of 1 day, with fans being told they surrendered the belts because Superstar was injured in the match and unable to defend. In reality, Superstar was going on another month-long tour of Japan. Evidently, Bill Eadie thought of the National Tag Team Championship as a going-away gift. This time, an actual tournament was held at the Omni in Atlanta to fill the vacancy. The Road Warriors defeated Junkyard Dog and Sweet Brown Sugar in the final of the 8-team tournament to begin their third run with the belts on May 20th, 1984. Animal and Hawk had their shortest run with the belts, 45 days, before proving human and dropping the tag titles to Jerry Oates and Ron Garvin on July 4th in Columbus, Georgia. The Road Warriors were headed to the American Wrestling Association, and Oates and Garvin signified a move closer to the traditional wrestling that had dominated Georgia pre-Road Warriors. It was while Garvin and Oates held the National Tag Team Championship that the WWF purchased Georgia Championship Wrestling and took over the TV time slot on WTBS. The Georgia territory of the NWA would shift to Championship Wrestling from Georgia, a promotion started by Ole Anderson, which was given a TV time slot early on Saturday morning. All the Georgia NWA titles moved to that promotion. Garvin and Oates had a decent 78-day run with the national tag title before losing it to an unusual set of opponents. On September 20th, 1984, a new version of the Hollywood Blondes took the National Tag Championship in what might have been a phantom match, as there was never a specific location given. The new Blondes consisted of Rip Rogers and Ted Oates, the older brother of Jerry Oates. While Ted was a heel and Jerry a face, the two never really feuded directly with each other, and in fact were rarely, if ever, in the ring against each other. The New Blondes held the tag title 45 days, losing them to the Lightning Express, consisting of Brad Armstrong and Tim Horner on November 4th, 1984, in Macon, Georgia. That was the first and only time the national tag title changed hands in Macon. Armstrong and Horner held the belts a few days when they had to surrender the title. Fans were told Horner was injured and unable to defend the belts. In reality, Horner was leaving the territory and going to Mid-South. Georgia wasted little time crowning new champions with a 12-team tournament held at the Omni in Atlanta on November the 18th. The Long Riders, Scott and Bill Irwin, won the tournament and the belts by defeating Brad Armstrong and Jacques Rougeau in the finals. Scott had previously held the title as the Super Destroyer. Fresh off a run in world class as the American Tag Team Champions, the Irwins held the national tag title 54 days before dropping the belts to the unlikely duo of Ole Anderson and Thunderbolt Patterson on January 11, 1985, in Cleveland, Ohio. Anderson and Patterson had one of the longest and most ferocious feuds of the 1970s. It was classic good versus evil, with the charismatic Thunderbolt battling the vicious Ole and making use of racial undertones that probably wouldn't be used today. While many newer fans were not aware of the previous conflict between Anderson and Patterson, longtime fans were stunned to see the two working together and winning a championship. That working together would be short-lived, however. Anderson had been showing a softer side over the last couple of years in semi-retirement, spending most of his time as a color commentator alongside Gordon Solie. Once he was regularly getting back in the ring, the old Ole Anderson started to come back out. Foreshadowing big changes that were coming, Patterson confronted Ole on Championship Wrestling from Georgia on April 6, 1985. Ole had been showing support to Arn Anderson, and Patterson felt Ole was having a change of heart by condoning Arn's tactics. Ole responded calmly at first, saying watching Arn reminded him of what it was to be an Anderson and how things could be for him instead of being what someone wanted him to be. When Patterson tried to reason with him, Anderson continued, saying he realized he had been carrying him, he had been carrying Tommy Rich, he had been carrying Dusty Rhodes. "Today is a free day," Ole told Thunderbolt. "The next time I see you, I suggest you watch out." The team split, and the National Tag Team Championship was vacated. By the next Saturday, the sale of Georgia Championship Wrestling by the WWF to Jim Crockett Promotions was complete, and the NWA was back in their usual time slot on WTBS. Crockett already owned the Mid-Atlantic territory and merged that with Championship Wrestling from Georgia to form what is generally referred to as Jim Crockett Promotions. One of the first things on the agenda for the refurbished territory was to fill the vacant National Tag Team Championship. With Ole and Thunderbolt being the last to hold the title, they each chose a new partner, with the winner taking the belts. On April 28, 1985, in Charlotte, North Carolina, Ole and Arn Anderson defeated Thunderbolt Patterson and Manny Fernandez to fill the vacancy. That set Ole and Arn on the longest reign in the history of the National Tag Team Championship, lasting 248 days. It was also the last reign as National Tag Team Champions. On January 1, 1986, Ole was injured in a six-man tag team match as he teamed with Arn and Ric Flair against the Road Warriors and Dusty Rhodes. With Ole out of action for an indefinite amount of time, the title was vacated and then deactivated and replaced with the United States Tag Team Championship, bringing the title to a quiet end. It was only around just over 5 years, but in that time were held by some of the most legendary names in the business. The Freebirds and the Road Warriors tied for the most reigns of the belts with 3 apiece, with Scott Irwin also holding it 3 times with 3 different partners. The NWA did revive the National Tag Team Championship a couple of times in more recent years, but it's not really part of the same lineage. In 1997, Death and Destruction, consisting of Frank Parker and Roger Anderson, held a revived National Tag title as part of Independent Professional Wrestling Alliance, but the title was retired shortly thereafter. Sorry, I couldn't find a better picture. In March 2005, Jimmy Golden and Robert Fuller were recognized as National Tag Team Champions as part of Wrestle Birmingham, which was associated with NWA Wildside. They would change the name of the title to the Wrestle Birmingham Tag Team Championship less than a month later. And that is it. Every National Tag Team Champion in its original run, plus a little extra. I hope you enjoyed this look at the short-lived but memorable title. If you'd like to see more title lineage videos, you can click the link to the playlist on the end screen, or check out some of the other videos on the channel. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, not necessarily in that order, and I will see you next time.